Welcome to the Growth Lab podcast, where we talk about how to get more clients, find new business opportunities, and win more cleaning contracts. I'm your host, Matt Harris, and I run the Growth Lab, a sales and business development consultancy for commercial cleaning businesses. I'm trying to help 1,000 cleaning business owners scale to 7 figures and documenting my journey along the way. Now let's get into it.
Welcome to today's podcast. I'm Louise, and today I'm getting to know Matt Harris from the Growth Lab. He's here with us. Now, the Growth Lab concentrates on lead generation for cleaning businesses. But Matt, I was going to ask you to introduce what is the Growth Lab, and then I'm going to ask you a bit more about the history.
Sure. So at the Growth Lab, we focus on outbound prospecting for mainly commercial cleaning businesses. So what that means is we use email primarily and some LinkedIn outreach, and basically we use email to generate interest in cleaning services for commercial cleaning businesses. And then we sort of set up sequences to be able to book face-to-face or phone appointments for the cleaning business owners. Or perhaps if there's a sales team at a cleaning business, for the sales execs, the sales reps, or even the sales managers or sales directors. So really a lot of our service delivery focuses around email, outbound email prospecting, building lists, identifying an ideal client profile, making sure that you know the right market that you're targeting, and then having a good handoff procedure once we have identified people who are interested in the cleaning service that is being offered, and then being able to hand those over to the relevant business owner or member in the sales team to then close the deal.
I love this, but this is quite unique, and I'm more interested in how did you get into this? Because you identified this need in your own business, didn't you?
Yeah, so I had a cleaning business which I sold 3 years ago, and I started it as a side hustle, and I was initially just focused on sort of end of tenancy cleans. So I didn't really know where to go with it. First off, I knew I didn't really want to do domestic, so focused on end of tenancy, and then just by luck I landed a commercial contract within the first couple of months. And then after that, really, there was a lot of trial and error. I would spend my lunch times cold calling to not any great effect. And then after sort of 18 months of doing that, I joined a sort of a mentoring community, and I started to learn new sales and business development strategies. And really the key strategy that I ended up focusing on was email. So email outreach. So I used to build lists of, property managers or office managers or facilities managers at, bigger businesses. And we used to offer our cleaning services to them. So I would copyright like a sequence of emails and then send those out. And those that replied with an interest, I then follow up with a call. And it's much easier to have a warm call like that, where you've already gone through the pain of introducing yourself and the service that you're able to offer, rather than just calling them straight off the bat and getting a no, because inevitably you're going to go through a gatekeeper rather than the decision maker. And it was just a process of iterating to get into a point where, okay, this is the most effective way that we're going to win some new business. So then how can we multiply that across a number of different sectors that we were working in? So I was doing that for commercial, so a load of offices. It did end up doing it for end of tenancy cleaning as well, builders cleans as well. And it worked. And then after I sold my business, so we were in lockdown, and
you sold it in lockdown, did you?
Literally about 15 days before lockdown.
Oh wow, that was lucky, wasn't it? I say it's lucky. It might have booted. No, commercial didn't do so well in lockdown, did it? It depends what you were doing. Yeah,
to be fair, the business had a couple of big central contracts, and one of them was for an estate agent with a number of offices, and they wanted quite a lot of disinfectant cleaning, and also obviously with the end of tenancy stuff that was still going on. So actually the cleaning business, the first couple of months was a little bit rocky, but after that they flew because of all the sort of specialist cleaning that came off the back of that. But for me, I ended up hanging out in quite a few communities online, so Facebook groups and Twitter, and I realized that there were two sort of really big problems that cleaning business owners were having. One was finding new work, so finding contracts, and the other was keeping or finding new staff. And I thought, well, I know one approach that worked for me, which was finding new contracts. And then I just started, posting a few suggestions in these Facebook groups, getting some feedback, saying, look, why don't you try this? Got a positive response. And I thought, well, there's an opportunity here. I went on LinkedIn. There's quite a few people offering lead generation services on LinkedIn. But what I realized is that they didn't necessarily take the approach that we at the Growth Lab are taking now. Because once I realized that sort of outbound email was a useful approach, I looked at what tech businesses are doing out in the States, and they use outbound email and LinkedIn a lot for their sales development. And I just started learning more about the processes they use, the sort of systems that they used, did a couple of courses. And off the back of that, I thought, okay, so if this approach is working for, big tech companies, then why can't the same be applied to cleaning businesses? After a bit of trial and error, we started to get some traction. So we've got our first sort of 5 clients under our belt now, and we're running campaigns for them, and it is working, successfully. So now it's just a case of learning from this process, seeing how we can change and iterate it, and then just replicating and scaling up. So that is what the sort of next 12 to 18 months are going to look like.
So you mentioned there that you identified that a lot of cleaning businesses were struggling to move from residential to commercial. Why are they struggling?
So I think one of the main reasons, so in particular on Twitter, right? So Twitter, there's a lot of people who set up remote cleaning businesses as a side hustle. So 90% of the remote cleaning businesses, they're going to be domestic cleaning. So they tend to rely on Google lead services and ads, either Facebook ads or Google ads, to generate leads, which is fine, because you get leads through, you provide a quote, and it's all well and good. It doesn't quite work the same for commercial cleaning. So the biggest challenge I think that people had is they didn't really identify a market within the locality that they were operating in. So what type of commercial cleaning did you want to do? Is it, cleaning offices? Is it cleaning warehouses? Is it cleaning like the more industrial stuff, or logistics, or whatever the case may be, deep kitchen cleaning? Because they just took the broad brush approach of saying, well, commercial, so we'll clean anything. Okay, so the first step is identify your market, and then kind of hone in on the niche that you want to serve. So if you're cleaning offices, for example, then are you cleaning offices for startups? Are you cleaning offices for established businesses? Are you cleaning estate agents' offices? Like which type of niche did you want to focus on, and what type of client do you want to serve? So the second step was obviously identifying your niche, who the key decision maker is, and developing your ideal client profile. Then the third step, which they generally tend to struggle with, is because they're relying so much on Google to generate the leads, then you're not having a real consistent approach with lead generation. So building the lists and focusing on outreach on a consistent basis, because you can do it ad hoc every now and again, but you're not really going to get the results unless you're doing it, unless you schedule time for it and you're doing it either daily or weekly. So those were kind of the 3 biggest challenges that were faced. And then, everything that stems from that. Obviously, we spoke a little while back about residential and commercial cleaning, and the fundamentals of the cleaning, that they aren't very different. You're going through the same sort of process. It's only the location that changes and is a little bit different. But there are, I guess, a couple of additional steps to take into account with commercial cleaning, because generally you'll sign some sort of contract. So then there's the negotiation stage, and the pricing to a certain degree, and the aftercare that comes after that as well, because you're tied in for 1, 2, or 3 years. Whereas with residential, like you can cancel on, I guess, a week's notice, a month's notice. So there is a little bit of a difference in that respect. But I think once you get over those kind of nuances, then actually delivering the service, your customer service, keeping in contact with the customers, learning from them is pretty much, it can be applied to both resi and commercial in the same way. Because then it's, it is customer service.
And you mentioned as well that you were speaking to a lot of people doing side hustles and remote cleaning businesses. And I know within the DCBN, we don't have so many. There are a few people doing remote, but obviously you were coming across quite a few people doing remote cleaning businesses on Twitter. With your perception of the market, did you feel that there was a lot of people doing remote cleaning businesses?
Yeah, but I say that there's a lot of people in the US. So on Twitter, the majority of people that I was speaking with, or I do speak with, are US based cleaning business owners. In the UK, if you have a cleaning business, then it's more likely that it's going to be your primary job or your primary focus. Why
do you think there's a difference? Why? Because we're fairly similar as industries to a certain extent, aren't we?
Yeah, I think the difference appears to me to be that the US market seems to be a little bit more tech savvy, and there's a lot in terms of processes that they'll adopt quite quickly, and there's a lot in terms of taking the online approach rather than taking a more sort of bricks and mortar approach to the business. So the online is like, I can be anywhere. I have all of these online tools. I'm going to use those to my advantage to be able to grow a business. Whereas the more bricks and mortar approach is, well, I need to start in this local area. I need to go out and start talking to people, distribute flyers, that kind of thing. So there is, in my opinion, there is quite a difference in the approach. But yeah, so the majority of people that I've spoken with in the US, they've set up remote cleaning business, either their second or third side hustle. And they go from zero to, I don't know, $15,000 a month pretty quickly. And I don't see the same trend or the same pattern over here in the UK. And I know. Can
I just say it's really interesting because actually probably about 25% of our podcast listeners are over in the US. So it'd be really interesting to hear some of their thoughts on this. But go on. So you're just not seeing the tech in the UK?
No, I don't think. I think there's like a slower adoption to the tech because, and this is the same I've found for commercial cleaning as well. A lot of it is based on relationships, whereas it seems that in the US it is transactional. Look, this is what I need to get done, so let me just get it done. Whereas here it's like, especially if you're working within your local community, it's getting known, it's getting established within the community, it's getting referrals from business networks or whatever the case may be. And I think there's just it appears to me a slower adoption process to utilizing tech to the advantage of your business to help it to grow. That doesn't mean that you're hamstrung, but it does mean that you're slowing yourself down a little bit because everything is moving online. I did some research and 60% of UK cleaning businesses have a website. Now, if you don't have a website, I
saw this research. I was going to ask you about this. Only 60%. Yeah. And is this domestic and commercial?
Yeah, domestic and commercial. Now, if you're not visible online, if you don't have a Google profile in particular, Google is the biggest search engine in the world. If you don't have a Google profile, if you're not collecting reviews on Google, then you're, for all intents and purposes, you're invisible. Simple things like having a website, even if it's just a 1 or 2 page website, which can be optimized, and you can have a layout in there which will take the visitor on a journey to not necessarily, to either book with you or to at least raise an inquiry. And I found things like that astounding, because social media and a lot of your visibility online is available for free. And I just think utilizing these tools that are available to you, yes, it requires a little bit of learning if you're going to do it all yourself, but we've got YouTube for that. You want to learn how to build a website? Go on YouTube. You want to learn how to collect reviews or how to, set up your Google business profile? Go on YouTube. It's all there. It's free resource.
So I am completely sold, and I know that from my business, nearly all the leads come in through the website. But I find this quite an interesting topic because a lot of people don't get a website because they feel they don't need it. It's a conversation I have quite often with people going, you really should get a website. But you sort of amalgamated social media and a website quite closely together, whereas a lot of people see them very separately. You can run your entire business and have enough work coming in off social media. Therefore, they're saying to me, well, I don't need a website. I'm guessing you very much disagree with that.
Yeah, a website is your storefront. No, it's your it's home base. It's where people go to kind of validate your service. If you don't have a website, that should be a red flag to a potential customer, because are you a serious enough business to, in the 21st century, not to have a website is going to be a little bit unusual. You look at the biggest businesses, they all have websites. So you should replicate some of their behaviors and utilize the online space to develop your own website. Even if you don't optimize it, let's just say you have a one-page website with all of your company details on there, a little bit of a blurb about what you do. That is still going to be more favorable than just, in my opinion, than just advertising your services on Instagram or on Facebook and not really having a fallback for when people come to search your online profile. Customers are getting more savvy. They will do their due diligence, right? They'll check you out online. So you need to have an online presence. You need to have an online profile, and a website is a central part of that.
I've got to say, I agree with you, but I do see a lot of people do. And one of the other interesting things, you mentioned there that the people in the US are a lot more tech savvy. But one of the boundaries, one of the restrictions I come up against is people go, well, I can't afford to sign up to this subscription and that subscription. And in the UK, we seem to be earning a lot less for doing the same job than those in the US. Do you think that potentially that is having an impact on actually their ability to invest in technology to grow? Potentially,
yeah. I think, again, we've spoken about this previously. I think the disparity in the States, they're charging $50, $60 an hour for cleaning. Whereas in the UK, up until recently, 10 quid an hour was seen as, well, that's just about enough, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that perspective, then it might be because, services aren't being priced high enough. Therefore, you're prevented from investing in your business. By the same token, not everything is a subscription service. There are tools that are available that you can use for free.
I've seen your list on your website. I went through you've got a great list, haven't you, of every app and tool you use.
Yeah, some of them are paid, but some of them are free. And yes, you might not get all of the functionality if you go with the free version, but it will get you started. And once you're started, then you continuously invest in your business, reinvest in your business to sort of build up your tech stack. I think the price disparity might be one reason why people don't invest. Perhaps also, not taking a vested interest in like finding out what sort of tech is available, and will help to automate workflows, or help with schedule management, or invoicing, for example. I think raising a little bit more awareness around the sort of technology that is available. And again, in the US, there's a bunch of different options which you just don't see being used that much over here.
So I was going to ask you about this. One of the ones that you spoke about on your website, which I'd never heard of, what's Notion?
Notion is it's like a workspace management app, I guess. So have you heard of Evernote?
Yes.
Okay. So Evernote is good for capturing notes. So Notion will help you organize those notes into separate workspaces, for example. So
Because
actually,
you
I'm not
said you
explaining it
loved
very
this
well.
one. You said that this was your favorite. This is the one app that you couldn't
Yeah.
do without.
So
So
I pretty much run my life through Notion. So
okay.
I have everything from my goals and milestones for the business set out in there. I have all of my standard operating procedures for the business that are linked in Notion. All of my research is linked into Notion. I collect tweets in Notion, tweets that I like and that I want to reshare. All of my newsletter and my blog posts and everything is written up in Notion, so that there's one central database that I can refer to that captures everything. And then from there, stuff is distributed out. So I started using Notion maybe 2 years ago. And before that, I wasn't really using anything. I had very much a disparate approach to sort of capturing notes and to-do lists and all that kind of stuff. And it's taken me 2 years to get to a point now where I'm using it consistently. But even that in itself, to have like one central reference point to manage everything has been massively useful, because I don't ever throw anything away. There's always
Spoken like a hoarder there.
Yeah, for sure. A digital hoarder. There's always something that can be reused, recycled, repurposed.
But you didn't stop at just finding it, did you? Because I was reading further, and you were saying that your Asana and your to-do list, you were using what is it? What is David? Am I going to say this right? What is David Allen's Getting Things Done? So sorted it all through, because you're a big listener to podcasts, Audible. You're always learning. So tell me what's this all about?
Okay. So look, I'm not a productivity nerd by any stretch of the imagination.
That's not entirely true. When I've seen your list, you are all about productivity, aren't you, Matt?
Entry level. Look, I've always enjoyed learning, and one of the things that I realized I wasn't doing very well was utilizing what I was learning. So during lockdown, I started to make a bunch of notes. I listened to, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 podcasts a day. And I take notes, and then they wouldn't go anywhere. They would just be notes on my phone or notes on my laptop. So I started following a few productivity YouTube channels, and Ali Abdaal was the guy who I followed the most. And he referred to David Allen's Getting Things Done system. And basically, it's just a way to capture your notes, your thoughts, to-do lists or actions that you want to take within your business, a way to organize them, and a way to prioritize the actions that you can do now, or actions that require more time that you need to allocate time for to do at a later stage. So I started utilizing that system. I've been using that for maybe 18 months, and I'm only now, you adapt it to obviously your own use case. And I'm only now regularly getting a benefit from it, because I schedule time every week to look through all the stuff that I've captured. I delete stuff which I don't think is necessary. Then I'll organize the stuff that I do think is necessary, whether it's for projects that I'm working on right now, or just to look into further for interests and hobbies. And then I schedule. So I have a to-do list, but it's not like, I need to get this done on that day at this particular time. It's more a case of, yes, this is what I want to get done. Does it fit in with a project that I'm doing right now? If it does, great. Then I will, there's already time allocated for me to work on that project. So that's when that particular task will get done. If it doesn't fit in with the project that I'm doing right now, then it will be filed away for a later stage for me to review, perhaps at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, to see whether it then comes into circulation. But it's a useful way for me to capture notes and ideas, because listening to a bunch of stuff and learning all the time, there's there's always stuff that comes up, and just to having a system where you can capture those ideas and then organize them and allocate them to sections at times in the day when you're gonna get stuff done is super useful.
Now, Matt, you mentioned there when I said you're into productivity, you kind of giggled there, didn't you? Now, you told me how your day starts. And actually, I think this is really interesting because as business owners, it's hard. It's hard to stay organized because we get things thrown at us from every single direction.
Yeah.
And I tried some time ago, and I loved the book, The 5 a.m. Club. I absolutely loved it.
Robin Sharma.
And, really, really good. But I took all that knowledge, but the part that got me was the 5 a.m. part. And wasn't so keen on that. So applied it all apart from the 5 a.m. club. But you actually apply this, don't you? But you more than 5 a.m.
Yeah. So maybe 8 years ago, there was a TED talk, something about building a habit in 21 days, something like that. And the talker said, I got up at 4 a.m. for 21 days straight, and it was amazing how much stuff I got done. So I was like, okay, cool, let me try that. So for a period of time, I was getting up at 4 a.m. But it was just a little bit too early for me. And then over the last sort of 8 years, I've flitted between 4 and 6 a.m. in terms of getting up. Now my morning routine is the most important part of my day. And it's a routine that I've developed again over the last sort of 7 or 8 years. So at the moment I will get up between sort of 4:30, 4:45. And then I will go through a process of working out, meditating, journaling. I'll spend some time learning. And then once I've gone through that process, which takes me anywhere, it can take as little as 45 minutes or as long as a couple of hours. Then I'm kind of ready to face the day. So once I've done that, it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock. Then I've still got a couple of hours, sometimes 3 hours before my daughter wakes up, because she's a late sleeper. She enjoys her sleep, thankfully. So I'll get some work done then. And you know, there's, if you read a bunch of books, they'll say, do your heavy lifting in the morning and do the most important work first. So for me at the moment, and for the last sort of year, it's been, I want to practice my writing, because if you write clearly, then it helps with your thinking process. Then it helps with your understanding about the stuff that you learn. So I'll spend, 60 minutes either writing a blog post or writing some LinkedIn posts or writing some Twitter threads, whatever the case may be. And then I'll spend another 60 minutes prospecting. So I will either jump on LinkedIn or jump on a couple of the platforms that I use, and I'll start to build a prospecting list or continue to build a prospecting list. And then really once I've got those two important things out of the way, then, the days that I'm looking after my daughter myself, I'll work in sort of 90-minute chunks. So I'll know when she sleeps, how long she generally tends to sleep for. I can get 1, 2, or 3 chunks done during the day. And then I'll get another couple of chunks done in the evening. And today, as we're recording, I'm lucky to have got kicked out of the house. So I've got a full day where I can just crack on, and I'll be able to get maybe 11 or 12 hours work done. And it all comes from sort of knowing what my overarching goal is for the month or for the quarter, for the year, and then distilling that down into like what are the next actions that I can take today. So at the end of today, I'll write down 3 things that I want to get done tomorrow. So before the day even starts tomorrow, I know what I need to do. That doesn't mean that I have to waste time running through my to-do list and thinking, oh no, what am I going to do today? What's the main focus? Because I've already decided, this is what I'm focusing on this week. So in order for me to achieve this week, I need to complete these steps. At the end of the week, I'll carry out a weekly review. Can
I interrupt you a second?
Yeah.
Because I think one thing that we hear on social media, so obviously the DCBN has a lot of social media platforms, and what we hear again and again from business owners on there is, we love seeing people's successes, and I'm sure they will love hearing your productivity, and they want to take in lots of hints and tips from that.
Sure.
But actually, it's really frustrating when we might feel like we're failing. So I'm like saying to you, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. That's not happening.
Every day.
But it's really hard sometimes when you see someone such as yourself being super, super productive, going, oh, why am I not doing it? So do you want to share what's happened to you in the last week? Because it hasn't gone quite so well.
Yeah. Not this weekend, just gone. The weekend before, I completed David Goggins 4x48 challenge. So I've been invested in David Goggins for a little while, and he does this challenge every year. So it's basically running 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So I was like, great, I'm going to do it last weekend. And I planned it all out. I had my food planned. I had all my equipment done, and I knew my sleep cycle and all that kind of stuff. And I did it. And the challenge itself, the distance was hard. I'd not run that long before.
48 miles is a long way.
Yeah, it's a long way. The irony was my time was getting quicker as the rounds were going along. So whereas I thought I was going to slow down, but that's by the by. After completing the challenge, yeah, I hurt, and I was drained for a couple of days, but mentally I was shot. I couldn't do very much. So, and I recognize that. And I think, maybe 5 years ago, I would have been beating myself up for not being able to do stuff last week. I had stuff to do. And as much as, I've been talking about, productivity, this and getting stuff done, that, the reality is, like, I'm not as automated or as systemized as you might like to think. So last week, very little got done, which means that, I knew come the weekend and the start of this week, I needed to play some catch up. But the reality is, like, you're not going to be perfect all the time. And that's not to say that I am perfect. I think
as long as you've got the systems in place, it doesn't matter if you sort of go off the rails a bit, does it?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, my morning routine that's the anchor for my day. If I know that is nailed, then I've already won, because I'm learning, I'm getting fit and healthy, I'm taking care of my headspace, and I'm getting the most important things done before the working day starts. But there are going to be times when that just doesn't work, and that's also okay. I think it's being able to recognize and being compassionate enough to yourself to kind of say, look, I can't go hell for leather all the time. I actually wrote a LinkedIn post this morning where I said, look, I normally work in sort of 6, 8 or 12 week sprints. And what that means is I'll focus on, one particular project for that period of time. And at the end of that period, I'll take, a couple of days, sometimes up to a week, where I don't work as hard, and I review the stuff that I've done to kind of identify what's worked, what hasn't, what do I need to change, and what we're going to work on next. And really, the running for that period of time required the same decompression period, just for your body to recover, for one, but also because I was focusing so intently on, and I have 12 rounds of 4 miles, and I'm not going to have very much sleep. And at the beginning of each round, I need to do this. And at the end of the round, I need to do that. And I need to, recover in between. That took quite a lot of brain power and energy out of me. And I didn't realize how much. So, of course, it's necessary to recover. But also, it's kind of raised my baseline now. So whereas before, I hadn't run that distance, the longest I'd run was 14 miles the weekend before. Now I'm like, okay, I can do 48. So, what's next? What we did?
Marathon 100? Next. I've seen your list.
Marathon.
There's a few Tough Mudders and Spartans in there. You're joining my world. This is what I do. But
really, is that what you do? Oh my God. Okay, cool.
Come and join me. Come and join some Tough Mudders. But what was I going to say? So interesting. If we apply this back to the cleaning world, so obviously you've talked about super productivity, and obviously you do quite an awful lot of physical exercise.
Sure.
And what we see time and time again with cleaning business owners is that it's quite a physical job, and until you get big enough, you can't get off the tools. And by the time you've physically done 6-7 hours cleaning a day, the last thing you can do is, like you were saying, email marketing or this or that. It might not even be that they're doing 6 or 7 hours cleaning. You might only be doing 3 or 4, but then you've got every problem thrown at you and you've got invoices to do. How do you carry on and do the productivity to actually grow your business if you're physically exhausted, mentally exhausted? Yeah. Where do you get that motivation from to then go, I am going to grow this business and make my job even harder to a certain extent?
I think, it has to, without sounding corny, it has to come from within, right? You kind of, when I started my business, I was like, yes, I want to turn it into a 7-figure business. And I didn't get there. But I always had that as a sort of external motivation. But
There's
I
a lot
think
of people trying to do that at the moment. This 7 figures seems to be the goal they're all going for. Why 7 figures?
I don't know. I think there's very few businesses first off that survive obviously the first 12 months. Then there's even few, and I don't know the stats, but I know that they're Google search away. There's even fewer that make it to 7 figures. So I think that's kind of it's almost like a badge of honor. And for me, yeah, I had that the first couple of years. It was a case of, yes, that's what I'm aspiring to. But the reality was that once I left my full-time job and I sort of focused on growing the business, I was on the tools for, I don't know, 3.5, nearly 4 years in my business. And I was working a full-time job for the first couple of years. And I just had that drive. I kind of wanted to be in control of my own time and my own destiny. So for me, that was enough of an incentive, even when I was tired, when I didn't want to do it, to kind of think, well, if you want to get there, then this is the road that you need to travel to get there. There isn't an easy solution unless you're fortunate enough to have a team of people around you who either are prepared to invest sweat equity, so they're prepared to go through the grind with you with very little or no pay, or you're fortunate enough to have a kind of a startup fund where you can employ these people from day one to help you build out this dream that you have in mind.
Which most people don't have either of those. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
hard work
So
and long hours.
it is, unfortunately. And there does come a point where I think you can either stick with going through the same routine all the time, which is, not doing very much marketing or lead gen, just relying on the existing customers that you have. But then you kind of reach a plateau. You're not able to go any further than you've gone. You kind of need to look and think, well, if I do want to go further, then I need to take a risk. And for me, I'm not risk averse. I'm quite happy to take a risk. I took a risk. I left, a decent job to focus on my cleaning business.
What did you do before? What were you doing?
So I was a property lawyer. I worked in London's West End. I worked at a relatively prestigious law firm for nearly 5 years. So I qualified in 2008.
Matt, I might need a word with you afterwards. I'm trying to buy a house. Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
So
that's
stressful.
Fine.
Anyway,
I know. I can imagine. I can imagine. I qualified in 2008. So credit crunch, and a lot of it was centered around property. So when I qualified, I got made redundant, unfortunately, because I'd just finished a 2-year training contract. I was promised a job at the end of the training contract. That didn't happen. So then I was out of work for, I don't know, the best part of a year. I got called back by the firm that made me redundant because they needed some maternity cover. So, 6 months turned into 9. And before they knew it, they offered me a full-time role. But going through that experience made me think, I don't want to be beholden to anyone. I want to be in control of my own stuff. So that's how I ended up starting a cleaning business, because I spoke with a few friends and they said, oh yeah, we know people who started cleaning businesses. I thought, okay, well, why don't I just do that? And a typical lawyer, I spent 18 months researching the cleaning market.
I bet you had brilliant contracts.
Yeah. And then my partner at the time said, look, are you actually going to stop researching and start doing? And that's kind of, how everything started. And that was part of the driver for me as well, right? I thought, well, if I'm leaving this job, then I need to, I need to go through everything that I need to go through to get to where I want to get to. And that was the driver for me. So, yes, I was cleaning for a while, and I didn't particularly enjoy it, but I also thought, well, this is just another step along the journey to building a business that I am going to be happy with. And that's after going through the initial sort of 3 or 4 years of that, and then meeting other people who are on the same sort of journey, and then, becoming part of a community like the DCBN, which would have been quite handy at that time.
But you did Twitter at the time, did you?
No, I did Facebook actually at the time. And networking, BNI and coffee mornings, and I don't know, like lunches know them all well. And all that, all that kind of stuff. And that was, it was useful. And then eventually built a team, and we had a team of cleaners, and then we pivoted everything and we outsourced everything, and then ended up selling it.
What made you sell it? What preceded you deciding to sell it? Because obviously you've got a business. We all know cleaning business. You can make decent money. You're doing quite well. It's ticking along. You're running it remotely at this stage, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Why would you sell something that you could keep taking? A lot of people say the dream is a residual income. Whether anything's truly residual, I question. But why would you sell it?
So 2 things. I had started a property management business, and that was going pretty well, which unfortunately didn't survive COVID. But the second reason was I'd lost interest, to be perfectly honest. And I think I love the honesty. I love it. Yeah. And I took the business as far as my skills at that time were able to take it. So I knew that I needed to learn some new skills to do something else and to develop further. But it wasn't necessarily going to be within the cleaning business. So I'd spoken with a couple of partners that we were working with at the time, and they showed an interest, and thankfully we managed to get a deal done. But yeah, I mean, the property management business aside, it was just I had lost the passion that I had for the cleaning business when I started. I was 8, nearly 9 years in, and it was time. So the irony to come back to cleaning, to help other cleaning business owners, because, I know some of the similar struggles, right? Whether you're moving from resi to commercial, or whether you're trying to grow your commercial business, I have been through similar struggles that you're going through. So I kind of know.
And how do you feel now? Because people must come to you and say some things like, I can't get motivated. Do they say this to you, or do they not let you in on all of this? Because they say it to me.
Yeah, no, a couple of the clients that we're working with have been perfectly honest, but also I think because you already have an existing business that is doing relatively well, if you're looking to expand into commercial or to change to commercial, then I think the motivation for a lot of people is, look, it's a new challenge. I want to continue growing my business. And I don't feel that, carrying on with residential is necessarily the route that's going to enable me to go to the next stage. And, the motivation is, of course, we'll go through periods where we just don't we don't enjoy what we're doing. You have it, I have it, and you go through that. And I think, especially if you're a sole operator, it's hard because you spend a lot of time alone. Yes, you might have a couple of cleaners working for you or whatever the case may be, but 95% of the time you're on your own. So it really, building up some resilience and having an internal driver that is going to keep you going is not something that comes easy to everyone, which is why, joining a network of other business owners who are in a similar...
for us, it's fine, Matt.
Is that right?
I can do the plugs. Join the DCBN's the answer, isn't it?
Well, it is, because you're you're speaking with other people who are going through a similar struggle, right? And that is, it's one thing that I said earlier, I wish was around when I was going through it, because it is hard. None of this is easy. The fact that you have started a business and it is continuing, like, you've already won, right? Because if you look at the statistics, they're not really stacked in your favor. So then it is a case of, yes, you do have to continue to learn and improve, but it's much easier when you have a support network. And that's massively valuable, I think.
Okay. So Matt, I'm going to have to wrap this up because we've come on to nearly an hour now. So Matt, a final thing then, if you were to give a reason as to why people would benefit from using your lead generation services at the Growth Lab, we've talked about it lots here, but as a final recap, why should they take the leap? We've talked about taking risks and things. What would they get back if they risked spending their money with you at the Growth Lab?
So look, we act as an outbound sales development team for you. So what that means is essentially we go through the steps of building your lists, organizing the automation for the outreach, and booking face-to-face and telephone appointments with clients who are interested in your service to help you either transition into commercial or to continue growing your commercial cleaning business. Now, there is a consistency element to the approach that we take, which is one of the things that is often overlooked, particularly by owner operators. But also, it means that you're not relying on relationship marketing or waiting for inbound leads from Google AdWords or Google Lead Services that aren't necessarily going to match the criteria that you're looking for. From our perspective, we don't guarantee, but we're pretty confident in being able to book you between 5 to 10 phone or face-to-face appointments every month. Once we've gone through our pilot period, we've nailed your ICP, your ideal client profile, and obviously we've built out your copywriting and sequencing. That's why, if you're interested in switching to commercial or growing your commercial cleaning business, then by all means book a call with myself. Quite happy to talk you through the process and see whether or not it's a fit for you.
And how will they find you? Because your website, which one are you going to use? It's I Am Matt Harris, isn't it?
So that's my blog. So on my blog, I write about some of the stuff that we do at the Growth Lab. A lot of it is personal interest, so high performance, lifestyle optimization, that sort of stuff, productivity. You can head over and find me on LinkedIn. So type in Matt Harris and the Growth Lab, and you'll be able to find me on there. Or if you want to get to our website, www.thegrowth-lab.com. It'll take you to a landing page. You'll get a little 2 or 3 minute video as an introduction about what we do. And then you can book a discovery call from there, and we'll be quite happy to help.
Perfect. Well, Matt, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to get in contact, have a chat with Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks to you guys for listening to the Growth Lab podcast. You can access the show notes and resources via the link in the episode description. And if you got some value from this podcast, please pay it forward and share it with others across social media, or leave a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. Hope you enjoy and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.